Hi, Dr. David here, and I often get asked which or what drugs, what kinds of drugs are abused most often. And there are some common list of culprits. They vary somewhat depending on where you live around the world, what your cultural traditions are, but basically the same ones tend to show up over and over again. And probably none of them will be a huge surprise for anybody when they hear about it. But I want to just emphasize the maybe dangerousness of some of the drugs that we consider very common and just integrated into our lives. Probably the number one abused drug in the world is alcohol. And I often say if alcohol were introduced today, it would never be approved because it's such a terrible drug. It's toxic. It causes all kinds of problems. It has permanent damage. It causes withdrawal, like the most serious of opioid drugs. And so it's just something that we see is so pervasive. It's legal in many cultures, legal at all ages in many cultures. It's just commonplace. It's used for ceremonies and happy times and bad times. Just it's one thing that is just so common. We tend to forget that it's a problem or even a drug. Sometimes we're forced to say alcohol and other drugs because it is a drug just like anything else. It's a strong mood changing substance. So alcohol, check on the list. Tobacco, despite the great drop in tobacco. And if you look at old movies from like the 60s or 50s, everybody's smoking and drinking. It's amazing to see. So we smoke a lot less, but people are vaping, people are getting it in different forms. And tobacco still remains fairly strong, highly addictive drug, as we know from years of experience. Marijuana. Marijuana is increasingly common. It's in the United States, it's increasingly legal. In most states where it's not yet legal to the public, it's available as a medical marijuana card. You can get it and have access to it. And it is useful for certain kinds of pain relief and other kinds of things. Where it's problematic, and I think this is again where we fall into this idea of dangerousness, young developing brains. If you are less than 25 years old and is chronically smoking marijuana, and by the way, today's marijuana is really strong. It causes a lot of psychosis. It's been cross-strained to create these incredibly potent strains that we see. But if you're less than 25, it does affect the brain in adverse ways. So it's something to be really cautious about, even though we consider it safe. It's a natural product and so on. The other two categories of drugs are common. You'll see the opioids, prescription opioids. In the United States, we've had particularly a terrible opioid epidemic the last 10 years or so, driven largely by illegal fentanyl. Started often with regular prescriptions from doctors for pain meds. And then, of course, my specialty over the years, amphetamines, both cocaine, methamphetamine, and other kinds of amphetamines are still very strong, very highly abused. So those are the main categories of drugs that we see that are very commonly abused around the world, and we need to pay attention to. Dr. David here signing out. Be well.